Hi everyone, thanks so much for rocking up today. So as a business, we've heard lots of people talk about purpose. Our purpose is to help companies make sense of Martech. So Martech is this amalgam or amalgamation of the term marketing technology. So hopefully everyone's got that. And the reason we're here with Paurav, we do a lot with the university, and you might be sitting on it, but we're just launching this report, which Paurav and the team have developed. We like the fact that they bring a lot of validity and reliability to the space as well. So that's us. Mm-hmm. In terms of the agenda, there we go. That's it. So again, top CMO challenges. This is from a Martech perspective, marketing technology. First one, change. It's balancing the digital first approach, and I think it's a lot about optimizing the existing investment. Actually, we talk about digital first. In the last couple of years, it was interesting. We had a project with the ONS and UK government, and that project became digital only for obvious reasons. And so it's really important that everyone recognizes now that digital is no longer on the peripheral. Every business is a digital business, and it's really important. Moving on to that next point, that CMOs have a clear understanding of how they can manage and own the agenda. So we see a lot of organizations where the purchasing has been very easy, low cost to acquire technology, and it's out of control. And so there's lots of duplication of systems, duplications of departments, competing compartments as well. And so again, it might have been that digital team on the periphery. Now it's got to be mainstream. Structure follows strategy. And so again, for CMOs in the future, it's how do you build that organization that's fit for purpose, that Martech shouldn't necessarily be a small team that drives governance and control. Drives the governance and control. It's really about driving that wider agenda, the democratization, and getting people to use this across the estate. So that's sort of the intro. Paurav.
Yeah. So first of all, we are right now, Adam and I have been given what we call the stop slot in some ways, as you know, because we are fighting something called homeostasis right now. There is a physical thing going on in your body which is calling lunch, and here we are, And so in that moment, we have to talk about, I don't know, marketing and technology, which you all live and breathe by. So we will try our level best to keep you entertained for the next 20 minutes, and hopefully you'll take a message home. In some ways, this whole collaboration comes out because it started with a very interesting phenomena. We call ourselves as a business, as a department, we are called Department of Digital and Data-Driven Marketing. And we call ourselves intellectual partners to intelligent companies. And we provide that intellectual rigor in some ways to very intelligent questions that you all are asking. And Adam asked that question by seeing that little number, as you see, that 9,000. These are the number of Martech platforms that are available right now. The market is so very, very fragmented. And in that scenario, how do you make sense of this space? How do you make people aware about about the situation, and then in some ways create some sort of synergies that would help us all become efficient? And we are going to share some of those findings around that. So in terms of what this report is, I'll just touch upon. This is the fourth wave of the report, so it's the fourth year running. We got involved, and that is because one of our colleagues who is sitting there, Dr. Rob Angel at the back, and Adam got in touch, and they started talking about a number of things, and we started thinking about how do you create a more robust, more academically rigorous project. And I don't want you to remind you of the dissertation marks you got last time. So let's not talk about it. But
Let's try harder.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so what we did, first of all, was that understand what is this market space? Who operates within this market space? What are their aims? How do they make sense of this landscape? And we realized that for that we needed a certain number of people to engage into it. So we identified sectors, we identified types of people at senior, middle, lower level of management, and how do we capture that? And we then realized that actually Martech, while it's an executional tool, still set in very strategically with CMOs, CEOs, CTOs. And so we decided to interview particularly those type of people. We initially did some very qualitative studies also, but then went on to do a more quantitative aspect. So we have got more than 650 senior marketers that we have studied across EMEA, across US and other regions. And in a way, this collaboration has been tremendously fruitful for both of our sides. So Adam, over to you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's the yeah. So again, it's that validity of if what have we set out to achieve what we wanted to do, and also the reliability, if we were going to do it again, would we get similar results? So that was important to us as well. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Paurav. So he actually runs he's the head of the digital and business intelligence, or digital and direct data team within the university. So globally on the QS rankings, they're a top 30 global organization. They're also a great source of students coming our way as well. In addition to that, he's also a visiting professor at, there's a school in Helsinki, used to be called the Helsinki School of Economics, Aalto. It's like the Cambridge of the Nordics. And then he gets shipped off to Cairo and Congo and other places as well to talk about two things really, primarily luxury branding and Martech as well. And so I'm going to talk something later on, right at the end, this concept of Martech IQ in terms of how do we develop that level of benchmarking intelligence in this space as well.
And I'll do the other. Thank you very much. And if you want to search me, because you will forget my name quite easily, we have now known the story, right? You could do in Google search what we call bold marketing professor, and you'll find me. So you can do that. But I want to tell you a little bit about Adam and how it all went about. In a way, one of the first things I would define Adam as curious. There are very few curious people left around.
Peculiar, sorry. That as well.
And he's phenomenally curious about life in general, but also in terms of technology, in terms of many other aspects of life. And how do you think about business cooperation from ground up in a very different way? And Adam does that job just so easily. And that's what got us connected, because Adam was not just asking questions in terms of, hey, we are a company and we want to do some research, can you do it for us? But rather, hey, we are a company with this mindset and we think that we would be a partner, so that's why let's connect. And I think that was a very interesting viewpoint. And then obviously, because you can see those degrees that Adam has got, and he was a Southampton MBA. I did not teach him, so he was saved. But we connected very, very well as a team, and he has had senior marketing roles at IBM. He is, at Iron Mountain, and he's doing some really, in a way, when I look at Clevertouch, and I'm not just saying it for saying sake, but I look at the company, and I would really recommend you all to visit Clevertouch's offices to really understand that culture, why it is one of the top 100 UK companies to work with. And it all starts at the top, isn't it? The person who has visioned it. And I think Adam and his partners, in terms of the way how you have visioned the organization, phenomenal. In a way, universities are generally very picky organizations, as you may have already known. We find it so easy to work with Adam and his team. So, that's what Adam has done. In a way, it's not just that his intelligence, but his intellectual curiosities have led to this whole market-defining phenomena called Martech spine, wherein a lot of organizations, why this fragmentation has happened is because of this fragmented technologies have just stacked on each other, while in Adam and his team have really defined a way in which how you can actually make it work as a whole through the market spine idea. So worth talking to.
And enough of me. Sounds like I normally get it from my mother. But, okay.
Yeah, so what we want to do, so in the next 10 minutes or so, we'll tell you something really interesting about what is going on in CMO minds across the world with regard to Martech particularly, and how we can think about Martech as a strategic tool rather than just an executional tool. And there are 5 major themes that are emerging. And the first is sustainable Martech. Obviously when a market is so fragmented, sustainability would become an issue. But I'm reminded of also one story. 25 years ago when I was in corporate and I went on to went on to join a PhD program. At that point in time, the question I was asking is how to manage customer expectations. Still going on, and we are in the same situation, this data management and hyper-personalization. In 97, Martha Rogers and colleagues wrote a paper in Harvard Business Review called, one-to-one marketing. We are talking about segment of one still, and we haven't even realized it, after all this data. So those are the kind of things happening. We are throwing a lot of budgets to it. We are visioning campaigns, but are we actually doing anything different than what Henry Ford did in 1920s? And these are the kind of questions that are coming up, and how this landscape is evolving. So we want to talk a little more about it. Adam, over to you.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting to talk about that book. I don't know if a lot of you won't be old enough to remember it. It was Peppers and Rogers came out with this book called One-to-One Marketing, and we all embraced it, and it led to CRM. CRM was an out because it talked about never repeating the same message, being able to link digital with physical. And the thing is, if you look at CRM, most people try to use it for that reason, and it never worked. It's at its best, it's not a very intelligent system, a CRM, but they've become ubiquitous. And it's been replaced by other systems. We'll talk a little bit about those later. But yeah, here are the key findings. Now, it's interesting to me that I've heard the word sustainability used quite a lot today. So when we talk about sustainability here, we're not really talking about walking on the grass, hugging the trees and singing to the birds, although that's pretty valid. There's another definition of sustainability, and that's having a defensible strategy. And what's happened in the last 10 years, people have acquired this stuff with alacrity and enthusiasm because it's been really easy to buy. But having a simple, coherent vision has been lacking in most CMO organizations. And so this suck and see approach has been okay in the past. But when economies and budgets and companies start getting a little bit tighter, I've seen a few nodding heads today, which is great, then it's got to be a little bit more defensible. And so, yes, let's pursue a green agenda, but let's also make sustainability mean defensibility from a marketing perspective as well. And we are moving now from a position of, if you like, technology chaos and acquisition to one with a little bit more coherent control and wider adoption. And so I always put this up here as well, because I remember I was meeting the CEO of Jupiter Asset Management, and he was so frustrated. We were implementing Marketo and a few other marketing technologies. Marketo's owned by Adobe. And he said, how come I can see the business, I can see the HR side of it, the people side of my business on a handheld, on a mobile, but I get nothing from marketing. And so my experience is, as you move further up an organization, the organization needs simpler understanding, simpler reporting, simpler messaging as well. So one of the things we talk a lot about is simplification, and I'll come on to that later on. Well, actually, I'll come on to it now. So we talked about this concept of the spine. Now, the problem I have with all that techno, the chief landscape stuff, is that you've got features masquerading as products masquerading as platforms, and it's a bit of a mess, and there's a massive shakeout. And so whether you're a small business or a large business, you need to have a really clear, simple idea of what are your platform plays. And the platform plays typically are where the movement of data around an organization. And so in a large enterprise organization, there's probably 6 to 7 platform plays. In a smaller business, there's only 5. And part of your role is to translate what this technology can do for the business. So keeping it simple is really, really important. Now, this concept of the spine rather than the stack basically is the premise of some technologies are more important than others. These are the ones that you need to put in place and then nuance them with layers of mini apps and so forth around it. Now, this concept, the university embraces it. We teach this at London Business School as well. PwC use it, Deloitte, London Stock Exchange. Steve, it works for you? Yeah. So take the idea and think, if you're going to articulate this back to your businesses, think about a spine rather than a stack, because a stack is a chaotic mess. Paurav.
Thank you. And so while we are talking about the marketing technologies and how they are moving, right, we are seeing, when we are thinking about data, there is just so much of it. We almost feel like we are living in Keanu Reeves' Matrix and little more, right? And in that sense, we have so much data, and at the same time, still we don't know what to do with that data. When we talk with companies, as university organizations, one of the things we first find is, oh, I have all the data, I have all the questions, I don't know what to do with it. And that is where intelligent companies come in picture. We have tremendous, there is a data deluge, and we all have an aim that I want to differentiate between customer X and customer Y, and I want to create journeys for them that are so lucid and they are so beautifully experienced. And then we come across and we go to the website and we feel, the S word comes into mind. And you think, what are you talking about? And then you have to call them and you realize that a company which tells you that we are a very sincere, robust company, and then you call them and you hear this little squeaky 18 years old voice, I'm really sorry to say, and you think, what are you talking about? Sincere, robust? I can't hear it from you. And so we tend to find this discrepancies. And so how do you engage in the intelligent capture, but at the same time intelligent routing of the data in terms that that data is available to the right person at the right time? And what we've found through our research, and that was we did it about 12 years ago, that companies that intelligently routed the data were 33% more efficient than all of their competitor in the market segment. Remember this word, 33% more efficient for the same amount of effort. It's just unbelievable that we are seeing. And similarly, this data management is leading to various other aspects also. For instance, when we talk to the CMOs, they all want to do hyper-personalized communication. And this is where I also find a little problematic thing. We all want to follow what everyone else is doing. Let's just stop and think back as CMOs. What is that what my organization should do? I don't want to have a relationship with my toothpaste, so please don't send me a newsletter, But that's what we all want to do because our competitors are doing, right? And so we really need to think about what is it that I want to achieve as a CMO, I want to achieve as an organization. And that's where obviously, what we are seeing is, as you can see, this chart which says that, hyper-personalization, now everyone is talking about it, from 9% to 27%, tells you the story already, right? And so, because everyone else is investing in CDPs, what am I supposed to do? Yeah, but what are you going to do with it? How are you going to use that intelligent data capture, and how are you going to route that data to your own organization's needs so your customers can be served better, and hence hyper-personalization can be achieved. It can be achieved, but it is with the right intellectual partner that you can do that.
Yeah, it's an interesting space though. So, again, in a lot of organizations, the CRM becomes the final dumping ground of bloated, messy data. And so suddenly people realize, again, going back to the one-to-one marketing, there's a vision and ambition, but the technology wasn't there, and now there is. So I would encourage people to start looking a little bit at CDPs. It is a growth area. In terms of budgets, they're like overall marketing budgets, sort of flattish in most areas, but certainly on Martech, the pendulum is swinging. There's more and more still being spent on despite recessionary worries or whatever. And that's as much around gaining control, no longer wanting to abdicate data to third-party providers, because trust and privacy is now a big agenda as well, and owning and managing that data in a responsible way. Without trust, your brand is nothing. Still, what's interesting on this chart though, there's still a spend, not as much as it was in the past, but still there's a feature and focus on technology acquisition, albeit not at the same speed. Integration is a really key thing now. And again, if you look at the way most campaigns, most Martech organizations, if you like, are measured today, well, all the awards, we don't ever go in for any more awards anymore because they're based on creativity and tactical campaigns. You cannot measure a Martech success in that way. It's wrong. The way you measure it is through the level of integration, the ability to move data around your organization. Your prime role is to make money, save money, or deliver insight. It isn't just funnel filling. It's a bigger role than that. And so it's great that integration's now on the agenda, but the saddest thing here is around people. People is still the last thing that's spoken about or invested in. And so as visionary CMOs, your role really is to drive wider adoption rather than the governance through a small team that are a bit like the quartermasters whose job's too important to let you have access to the tools. And so what we are seeing is simplification technology, no-code technology being adopted. So for example, Fujitsu, a client of ours, they've got 400 marketeers now using no-code application to access their Martech spine. And that means that you're giving them the capability without adding burden to their roles as well. So my advice, if you like, or guidance would be to think about your organizational design, structure follows strategy, and really put the development of the people at the heart of your Martech. You know, if we're spending more now on Martech than we are on Martech people, ironically, there's a problem there.
Super, thank you, Adam. And I'll just cover this one point very quickly. In terms of what we are finding is, what I've already mentioned, are we really different in our campaigning processes? We still believe in quarterly campaigning. We still do just socio-demographics. You know, are we really, in a way, web is now improving from web 1.0 to web 2.0 to web 3.0, and people are talking about even web 4.0 with metaverse and everything. But our still focus seem to be just socio-demographics. I'm not just a male, some middle-aged or rather ancient in my case, right, and Cro-Magnon men. I'm a lot of other things, and we can capture that. But are we doing it, is the question. And how are we then leading those questions of experience and hyper-personalization into, you know, our own design thinking? And in that sense, you know, one of the questions that we are asking, and that is what in my lab we keep on asking is, why do we value what we value? Trust only appears when you do something valuable. And what is it, that value that your organization is generating? That would create trust. That would create a lot of respect for the organization in the consumer's mind. So I'm just going to move very quickly because we are running out of time.
Right,
Adam, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So again, what's going on in the market at the moment? Well, let's say it's been a bit of an arms race. Remember big data a few years ago? Who talks about that now? It's all AI, right? But in terms of coherent ecosystems, yes, Salesforce are pretty dominant, Adobe are dominant. One comes from the data back end, one comes from the front end experience. Oracle and IBM have sort of lost their way with some messy, ugly acquisitions, and their Oracle have now pulled out of the space. So I'm going back to what are the key platforms, if you like. And in the SME space, HubSpot have done a fabulous job, and you know, because it's about experience. They've moved their positioning a little bit, but there's some emerging technologies that, again, that you should be looking at, I think, in terms of just flagging to understand what they could do for your business. One is around trust and privacy. And actually, so I went to a Martech event, and the most popular speaker there on the day was a company called OneTrust. There's actually Steph in the audience here. I didn't realize Steph was here today, but if you think about privacy and subscription management, and again, going back to trust being really important in most people's agenda, this is something that they do very, very well. So it's more than just cookie laws and so forth. So that should be on your futures agenda. And then the other areas, as we spoke about, is this concept of CDP. So the CRM being an unintelligent platform, you need an intelligent roundabout from which all the other apps can sit off. And that's where the CDPs come and play. So again, you can't see it there. Do a little bit of research around a platform called Segment, and if you're in B2C, look at a company called mParticle. And now, Salesforce and Adobe are coming up with stuff as well, but it's a fragmented market. But just put it on your awareness to again, you need to be able to translate what this stuff can do back into the business. And what we're still seeing at the moment is there's lots of emotional debate around the technology, this brand versus this brand, and actually it comes back down to the business reasons. There's 12 business reasons for doing this stuff, and it could be around intelligence, it could be about funnel filling, it could be about customer lifecycle management and so on and so on. There's 12 business. Make sure that you've got that clear in your business and you can translate the technology to support that. Sorry.
Go ahead. And so just because we are running out of
Yeah.
time, as I have seen the news from the back, something we want to just touch upon, that accountability is becoming a major thing, right? Martech, today we are talking about, we just don't think about, anyway, when we think about new technologies, we tend to think about technology as an executional tool. If we can start thinking about technology as in the strategic realm, I think our approach to technology would differ. And that would create greater trust for marketing. Because in the first session, if you remember, in the first plenary session, they talked about marketing right now has a trust issue. And I think if we can use technology at a strategic level, that trust issue can be brought back onto the table in a positive way towards marketing. And that is what we are trying to do with these 2 new platform ideas that we have come up with right now as we are working. And one is called Martech ROI, in a way, really identifying and telling the CEO that this is what we are delivering to the market, and at the same time, how intelligent is your Martech? So I'll leave you with those 2 questions in terms of how intelligent is your technology. Thank you all very much.
Right. Thank you.
All of us. Thank you.